Welcome to the Find Your Feminine Fire podcast. I'm your host, renowned sex and relationship coach Amanda Testa. And if you are looking to reclaim your sexual desire, take sex from a to-do to something you look forward to, and enjoy deeply connected relationships without adding more to your already full plate, then you are in the right place. Listen in to discover how to fan the flames of your feminine fire, fall in love with your sensual self again, and experience intimacy like never before, all in a way that feels really good to your system. Make yourself comfortable and enjoy the episode. Sometimes the noise and the busyness and the chaos of our lives, it really disconnects us from who we are. So if you are on the path to restoring your sacred connection to yourself and all that matters to you, you are going to love this week's episode. I'm very excited because today I'm going to be talking with Elaine Glass. She is a visionary author and a very, very talented master life coach with over 15 years of experience of really helping people transform their lives and find that connection back to your truest self. So I am so thrilled to be with you here today, Elaine. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for that wonderful introduction, Amanda.
Yeah. And as well, we're going to probably touch on her newest book called Get Quiet, which is a beautiful book, which is something that I think is such a gift. Even just those words, when I hear it, my nervous system is, I was just cracking up. Can I share a quick little story before we start recording? Because I was just noticing on your Instagram page and you had the mug of you and John Bon Jovi. I was dying because that was actually my very first concert. I was like 15 years old and Bon Jovi and Skid Row came to Augusta, which no big bands ever came there, but it just was such a fun memory. When I saw that, I was like, oh, all the girls were loving John Bon Jovi back in those days, and probably still.
That was the highlight of my 30s, to be able to go to Las Vegas and get a backstage pass and have a picture with John Bon Jovi. Come on, like that was gold back then. So I appreciate that you like that.
Oh yeah, so much fun. And I think it's interesting to note too, because I'd love if you would share just a little bit, because we were even just talking about before we started recording, just the goodness and sweetness of life as it is today. But of course, often there's many challenges to get to these points. And I would love if you might just be open to share a little bit of your journey to get here and what inspired you to do this work that you're doing.
I appreciate the question. That picture of with me and Bon Jovi was like me living my best life. And that was before having children, and I was newly married, and the life was just so great. There were very few worries and concerns, and I felt healthy and alive. But then that kind of quickly changed when I realized that my marriage wasn't all that I thought it was, that it was very dishonoring and disrespectful. And I found myself in an environment and a relationship that was weighing so heavy on me, I could barely breathe. And then, of course, children came along, which I wanted desperately, thinking that would help everything. And my life enhanced so much, of course, because my boys are everything to me. And also weighed a lot of heaviness as well because of the responsibility. So my life took a big turn from that moment that you just talked about with Bon Jovi. And so I had to find my way back to that happiness, to that healthy place. And I went on a journey to do that. But it wasn't before I actually ended up staying in that marriage for 13 years, very difficult marriage that caused a lot of heartache, a lot of pain, a lot of stress, which happened to cause an autoimmune disease, because that's what stress does. So I completed the marriage, which was the hardest decision I would ever make, and went from a lavish lifestyle to living in a very tiny 2-bedroom home with my children and trying to find out what happened.
Yeah, I just want to it sounds too like even just in hearing that story, I can just hear the story too of many people who might be listening, or even just the experience of being in an experience, a relationship where you're not honored or it's stressful and you just keep going along because like society just tells us to keep going along. And I have a past experience of being in the wrong relationship for far too long myself. And it's like, it's so hard to be that brave, but I just really want to commend you for that bravery of making that choice to honor what you needed to get healthy again and to just reconnect with what made you feel good.
Yes, my whole inspiration were my children, and I think that before we can inspire ourselves, our children inspire us. And so I was inspired to be the
Mm.
healthiest mother that I could possibly be. They deserved that. And so that's what I set out to do. And it's taken me a decade, and I don't want it to take anyone else a decade, and so that's why
Yeah.
I'm sharing my message.
I'm curious too, just even in that journey, how the importance of getting quiet or what that means to you in just being able to listen to what your real like those nudges.
Yes. And it's all about being able to connect to those nudges again, because that's what the noise does is it completely takes us off course because we can't hear that wise, comforting nudge, those wise voices. And literally, my life got so loud and so full of fear that I found a retreat center. I was guided to a retreat center because I was present enough one day to be in conversation with a guy at a coffee shop. And he led me to this retreat center and said, I think you'll really like it there. So it ended up being a half a mile from my house. I didn't even know it was there in the 20 years I'd lived in the area. And I had finally found some peace and quiet there. And that was really what I see as getting quiet. That's the first step, anyway. There's a lot more that goes into it. But for me and anyone just starting out on this path, it's the choice to get still and to get quiet. And that means our atmosphere and our environment has to be quiet enough so that we can hear that still wise voice. That's the
Mhm.
point.
Yes. And I'm curious because I know this is sometimes it can be right in reality of craziness and noise. What are some maybe just even like baby tips you can share around how you can distance yourself or get a little bit of a break from that chaos and the constant noise?
We are right now so bombarded that it's got to be either in our calendar, in a scheduled event, and it has to be a commitment to what my premise in life is, and that is to savor this one precious life we have. So everything I do is based upon that one premise that we are living a precious life and I'm going to live it fully. So that's the first step is to have a premise for yourself of why it's important for you to wake up fully to the truth of your life instead of looking away at the truth of your life. And so the first step for me was to get quiet in my environment. And the next thing I started to do was I just started to move my body. After trauma, after any type of grief or loss, in my case, it was divorce, my whole energy was stuck. My whole body was stuck. I couldn't even move, it felt. And so I just started to take baby steps and literally getting off of my couch and walking around my home. And it was August in very hot Arizona. So that was the first step. I just started walking around my house and shifting the stuck energy because getting quiet is about releasing the hold of everything that we, particularly women, hold. We are hold it alls. And so
Yeah.
this getting quiet is about releasing the heaviness that we're holding.
It's so true. And I think that's part of our conditioning as women in this culture, right? That we have to take care of everyone else and make sure everyone else is happy and make sure that everybody and everything else is thriving before we will give ourselves permission. And I think that's such a beautiful thing to note is like really tuning into the things that you savor. I love that word too.
And the next thing I did was I rested. I gave myself permission to rest. And in Get Quiet, the book, I have a quote by Nathaniel Brandon, and he says, leisure is a valid human activity. And when I first read that, I was like, what? It was so foreign to me. I thought, rest and leisure? How do I have time to do any of that with all of the world's pressures and stresses? But again, this is what we have to make time for. This is what self care is. And slowing down and resting so that we can be in a state of receptivity. It's all about being guided again in the right direction. And when we rest and we receive these insights, these intuitive hits, we feel like as women, we've lost our intuition in some cases, maybe never even had it. But I promise you, you were born with it, that you have it. You've just got to commit to getting it back online again.
Yes. And I love that term of receptivity and just being able to allow yourself to receive. I wonder if you would speak to that a little bit more, because I know that's really challenging for a lot of people.
When we are in a position to receive, that can be scary because that could mean a level of intimacy that we are not comfortable with ourselves or with another person, which then could lead into a very uncomfortable connection, either with ourselves or somebody else. So that really is the primary concern when we're in a position to receive. But again, it's as much as you give, you've got to receive. Or else, if you're just giving, which we do just by nature, then the energy flow is stuck. And that's the key. You have to remember that this is an energy flow. So if you're just giving in one direction and there's nothing coming back, there's a clogged pipe there, so to speak.
Mm.
So what we give, we then have to receive equally. And the problem that I think that a lot of women that I see get into is when we are only giving, we attract takers. And this is when our relationships really crumble, is because we get so resentful, we get so angry, and all those emotions get stuck in our bodies and cause
Yeah.
disease and illness and
Yeah.
stress. So this is all interrelated and interconnected. And as we know, that's the mind body soul connection.
Yeah. I'm curious too, just to back up a minute from when you were moved out and you were in the home with your boys and really starting to heal just like from the autoimmune. I'm wondering if you might be open to just sharing a little bit too about some of the basically things you were saying, like starting to just move in the little ways that you could, really taking those the doable next step that felt like I can do this, but it's not so hard that it would just shut you down again. I'm curious if you could maybe just share a little bit more about just coming out of that. What else was supportive in that moment for you?
Feeling back into my body because I was so wrapped up in the thoughts on repeat in my head. I'd wake up just my thoughts were swirling of worry. How did I like mess up my kid's life? What choice what decisions did I just make? Oh my God, I are you crazy? Like I was just freaking out most of the time those early days. And I had to get back into my body. And so that's why I started to move. I would go out to the swimming pool instead of doing laps. Sometimes we women want to get out there and just go for it in a forceful way. I had to return back to my body in a gentle way, in a more, what I feel was a much more feminine way, because I was trying to balance the masculine and feminine at that point. And the masculine could have totally have taken over. I was in a position of working full time, making all the hard decisions, doing all of that. And I think I
Yeah.
did lose my femininity in that during that time. So I had to get back to gentle movements. And so I got in the pool instead of swimming those laps, I would dance in the pool and see how my body swayed, or I would take baths and I would just appreciate this beautiful body that had given birth to two beautiful humans. So it was just this a presence of appreciation for my body, and that's how I started getting back to a more feminine way, because that's what my true nature is. And that's what I was missing. I was missing myself.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. I it can be like so hard. Our culture does not really allow for that softness. And we really have to create space for it, I feel like a lot of times. And just saying no to the things that are like just depleting. I'm
And
sure. Yeah, go
mhm.
ahead.
Okay. So the space in which I created for myself was in my closet of all places at first. Before I even found the quiet retreat center, I simply just would go in my closet. I had a little pillow there, and it was a small closet. So it felt like this little cocoon. And I knew, just like a butterfly, I knew that I needed to grow and learn and connect in that cocoon in order for me to fly and to blossom and to flourish. And I know that sounds crazy, but this is not about going away for a week on vacation to a spa. Like, this is simple. And these are necessary things to do. So if it's loud in your house and your kids are causing a muck, just go in your closet and create that cocoon for yourself.
Oh, I love that so much. Because you're right. People aren't often, I would love to be able to do this, but I don't always have the luxury to go away to a retreat or to a spa or whatever. And if you can, that's wonderful. But yes, it's even just making it simple and doable, going into your closet. I love that so much. When I first started doing the work that I do around sexuality, I remember when I first started doing my practices, there's only one room in the house that locked at the time, which was the bathroom. So I would do the same thing. I would just go in the bathtub with the pillows and lock the door. That was it. Right? You
Yes.
have to make it work.
And reconnect with our bodies. And
Mhm.
the next thing I did, Amanda, was I created a healthy environment.
Yeah.
Whereas in my big, large home when I was married, that was just not a place that I ever felt was warm and nurturing. So I created a beautiful, nurturing environment for me and my sons in this small little house. I'd have fresh herbs growing in the windowsill and fresh flowers, and everything was neat and clean, and the drawers were free of clutter. And of course, I had to do a lot of that decluttering, which is also so cathartic because when we go through every box of ours, from our childhood through any point in our life, it is so cathartic to really begin to remember who we were. You're going to find love letters and you're going to find pictures that remind you of things. And this cleaning and clearing out my environment was the second thing that I did that I found was extremely helpful to getting back to who I truly was.
Mm. I love that. I feel like that decluttering aspect. And also you mentioned earlier too, like there's such an energy component to that even as well. Right? It's all that stagnant energy is just like clutter and things like that just sits.
And that energy, as I talk about it and Get Quiet, is that's all around your heart energy. And when we have experienced any type of loss or disappointment, we have the walls go up around our hearts like immediately. How do you break down those walls? How do you love again? I wanted to find love again. I was desperate to find love again because I knew I was a loving human being and I wanted to share that. But boy, was I scared.
Yeah.
And so when I cleaned out my environment, when I got everything super healthy, and that also is the people in your life. The walls come down and you begin to open your heart, and it's such a beautiful experience.
Yeah. I'm curious too. You mentioned around this process where you are giving yourself grace. I hear that a lot. There was a lot of just like slowing down and being compassionate and knowing, like, trusting that call to go to the cocoon and just like giving yourself that and creating that nourishing environment for yourself and like really tuning and tending to your heart that was healing and hurting. And I'm curious too, like to, because a lot of the women that I work with and a lot of people listening to the podcast have often gone through big transitions like that. And I feel like often after a big life transition, those are when you feel like I'm lost, but I know I need to find myself. And these are the first steps. But you, like you say, you're like bumbling along, following the breadcrumbs. I'm curious what else really helped you to like trust and opening your heart again, if you feel okay to share about that.
I had forgotten how to play.
Mm,
And as women, I feel like that is one of womankind's greatest achievements. And I had forgotten to play. We are meant to play. And what does that look like? It's different for everybody. Like for me, I was a gymnast when I was a kid. So I'd be the mom swinging really high on the swings with my kids because I wanted to play. I also found things like Pilates because that reminded me of being a gymnast. I was playing again. That wasn't exercise to me. It was just complete play. And it was also connecting to nature because I grew up in the redwood forests of California and I disconnected from nature, which really means we're disconnected from ourselves because we are nature. So the reconnection to nature and to touch trees and to marvel of the beautiful colors and flowers and to feel sunshine on our face. This is how we get back to feeling ourselves again. And I know that we hear these things a lot throughout media and throughout just experts talking about it, but these are basic human needs that it seems like we have to make time for, which feels a bit crazy. But because we are so busy and so have so many other unhealthy options to choose from, that we're almost fighting for our own very existence.
Yes. You have to be very intentional. Hey, it's Amanda. If you are enjoying the show and felt a connection to what we've discussed, and you're ready to take the next step in reigniting your passion and enhancing your relationships, I have something special for you. Visit www.amandatesta.com/thegoods, where you can subscribe to my email. And if you want, you can sign up for a free personalized sensuality rediscovery session with me. In this one-on-one heart-to-heart session, we'll explore your unique desires, uncover any challenges, and set a path for you to experience the vibrant, fulfilling love life you deserve. Don't let another day pass feeling unfulfilled or disconnection. Take action now, and let's start this beautiful journey together to fire up your feminine fire. Join me at amandatesta.com/thegoods. I'm excited to stay connected. Now back to the show. I'm curious too, because the play is such a big thing. What are some of your favorite ways to play nowadays?
Oh gosh, just everything I just mentioned too. But I also like to play with my kids and travel with them. So it looks like that's play. Sharing in deep conversations with my partner feels very playful and because it
Mhm.
feels very creative. What can we get to out of a conversation that would fill both of us up and either make us laugh until we cry or cry until we laugh. It's being in deep conversations. It's being present to my life. And in every moment there's playfulness. Like today I went and sent some books out to some friends and I'd been back and forth to the same post office here in my local town for the last 2 weeks sending out various books. And so the two women at the post office, they kept saying, "What are these books? Are these your books?" So I brought in them a signed copy for them, and we got into this beautiful conversation, and that felt playful. That we were just talking, and I had a random conversation because my heart is open and I'm present to the moment, that I can really have these moments that are so fulfilling and connect with people when most of the time we're just looking down, we pay for our groceries and we leave. So this is all the ways that I play. And it really is through random acts of conversations.
You even mentioned earlier, like just that being able to will it to strike up a conversation with someone anywhere. And how that even earlier when you were at the coffee shop and the person told you about the retreat center that was just right down the street that you had never even known about. I think the other thing that you mentioned that I want to just point out again is just that presence of just slowing down and being present, because that is where so much of that beauty and juice of life is, right? You can be I think we can have so many things that we wanna maybe check off or whatever it is as busy women. And so if we're even at the end of the day, you're like, "Well, I need to clean up the kitchen and I need to do this and that and got to finish this email I didn't send," versus what if you just really slowed down and let your partner who's coming by to give you a hug, like really stop and fully give them your presence? Or your kid wants to show you something, like really stop. And that's what's more important than cleaning up the kitchen. But we're not taught that. So it's something you have to rediscover sometimes.
Definitely. Presence is all that we really need to be doing is everyone, we just want our own presence. Others want our own presence. And when you talk about our children, the key, I feel, to being a mother or a parent in general is to be able to listen and be present with our children. We don't need to fix everything in their lives. Enough with the fixing. Just be present. Allow them to come home from school and just let them talk. so that we are just listening. So the presence is really about listening. And I believe that listening is the most active thing you can do.
Mhm. I agree. And it's sometimes hard to learn that art. It's a practice. I think too, it's that art of listening is something you can cultivate. I think a lot, that's what's the beauty of a lot of these things is there are things you can learn. Maybe you've forgotten, but you can learn, right?
That's right. And in my experience, I have sat with over 40,000 patients when I was in the dental field for over 20 years. I've also sat with hundreds of coaching clients. And I can safely say that the most healing thing that I feel I've ever facilitated in someone else is the fact that I was listening to them. And there's a lot of data there for me to look
Mhm.
back on. And I know that when somebody is fully heard, they light up like a Christmas tree. And it's the most amazing feeling. In fact, yesterday I was just at the retreat center because that's where I do my retreats, full circle now. And there was a gentleman there, and I said, "What does this quiet do for you? Why are you here?" And he said, "It just helps me clear my mind." And we started in this conversation, and he had gone to prison a few times, done some bad things he shared with me, and wanted to make right with his kids. And getting quiet, getting his thoughts together, getting his life together, being able to tune in and hear God's voice, is what he said, has changed his life completely around. This is important. This is necessary. This is your one precious life.
Mm. Yes. I'm wondering too, because I know the retreat center has a lot of special meaning for you, and also the labyrinth, which is also on the cover of your book. I'm wondering if you would share a little bit more about that, if you don't mind.
That one day that I felt my life was just crumbling to pieces, single mother, trying to figure it out, I found this retreat center and I found this labyrinth. And I didn't know what a labyrinth was. And now I know it's a 4,000-year-old ancient contemplative tool. And the metaphor is going toward the center and out, as if we're connecting to our souls, connecting to God, connecting to that still wise voice that we cannot hear as much these days. And so I started walking this labyrinth, and it really felt like a portal, Amanda, that I had found myself in, like this healing portal. And the very first time I ever walked it, I clearly heard, "I know," which was my soul's voice. I just know it because it said to me, "Elaine, surrender." And it was like someone was walking next to me. And that was weird. But I trusted it. And I've been walking it ever since for the last over a decade. And that has really been the single thing that has allowed me to tune in, hear my voice, hear the voice of the unseen, whether you call it universe, God. I've trusted it. I've trusted what I've heard. And now I'm here. I've fallen in love again. My kids are amazing and they're thriving. And I've completely changed my life around because I was able to hear my soul's calling. And I know that the people I've sat with through all these years who have been anxious, depressed, have chronic illnesses of some kind, I always ask them, what are you not saying yes to your soul's calling? Why are you not saying yes to your soul's calling?
I'm curious too, what do you feel like are some of the main blocks that people have to listening?
Fear.
Mm, mhm.
Fearful that they might hear something bad. Fearful that they will be confronted by something that they have to work through. And first of all, your soul has a very loving voice. That's all there is, love there. So it will only inspire you. It will only guide you to a positive outcome. So that is what I know for sure. Will there be emotions that need to be looked at and addressed? Of course. I had to forgive myself. I had to stop judging myself and others. Like I had to sit with my emotions big time. And that's how you heal. But by shifting those emotions, healing those emotions, releasing those emotions, which I write about and Get Quiet, they're all stuck in our hips energetically. We think we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, but I actually found that we would carry the weight of the world in our hips. And so in Get Quiet, I do have a visualization where you can release the stuck energy in the hip area. And it's just a beautiful feeling. But there's nothing to be scared about. You will always only be met in that labyrinth, in the center of the labyrinth, with love.
I'm curious too if, speaking of energy, because I love energy and very connected to this type of work. I'm curious for you, when do you feel like when you were able to start listening and getting quiet and connecting to your soul, your inner voice, and that wisdom, do you feel, were you always connected to energy, or did it more happen like after this journey?
I feel like I was born with this ability to connect to energy. And it only got even more expanded sitting with all of those patients all those years,
Hmm.
connecting and literally having my hands over people's energy field for all those years. I've always been connected to that. But with the noise in my life, the fear in my life, the loss and grief in my life, I got disconnected from that. And so I feel like these energy points that I write about in the book are very healing.
Yeah.
And that's how I healed my body. And so I've been able to get back in touch with that energy and that sensitivity again, because it's subtle energy. And that's what these messages are as well. If our lives are noisy, if our lives are full of fear, if our lives are full of distraction, we are unable to feel and sense and hear the subtle energy and the subtle messages that are guiding us. We don't have to look outward. It's
Hmm.
all within us, but we've got to figure out where that within is. And so that's why I wrote Get Quiet, to help you get to that center place.
I love that so much because it is like, it's a, the words I'm looking for, let's say it's like the famous saying, or it's like that truth that while you have, it's in you. It's just we forget how to connect to it. And we sometimes need help, like reminding, what is the way? I don't know anymore. Because it is true. We so often are just running around disassociated, and it starts from a young age because we aren't really always able to listen to our body. I loved it. My daughter, when she was in kindergarten, the kindergarten teacher was passing them, did a whole workshop on body mapping, which I thought was amazing. I was like, only and I had learned that in kindergarten, how much different my life would have been, right?
Well, and when I was hearing the messages, because this can happen as well, we get very scared sometimes about what we do here, because I believe that God has a plan much bigger than anything that we can create for ourselves. And so when I started to hear these messages from beyond my own human being, they were scary. They were telling me ways and things that I had the potential of doing, and it was very scary. In fact, I was ignoring it for so long. I would say a full year. I was just like, no, that's not for me to do. I'm just this normal single mom just trying to get through life. Stop with the messages. But one day I was literally taking the groceries out of the back of my trunk, and my trunk hadn't opened all the way. So I came barreling around, not even thinking about what I was doing. And boom, the trunk hit me on the head, just like I almost fell to the ground. And literally that night, I started channeling messages like never before. It's like I had to get hit over the head for the universe to get my attention and say, no, 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 this is what you need to be doing. And it was the craziest thing, but I trusted what I was hearing, and it wasn't crazy talk. And who was I to write a book? Who was I to be a coach? All of these things, like, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this. Am I worthy of all of this? Am I enough, period, to
Mhm.
be helping people? And those were a lot of difficult years because I resisted the call.
Yeah. I'm curious what helped you to overcome that, those inner critical voices, or all the things that were like, who am I to do this? And because I hear that a lot from women that really feel they hold themselves back because of those thoughts.
There was one day where I said, yes, I'm ready. And I was in the center of the labyrinth. And I said, okay, yes, I'm ready. Just tell me where to go. I'm ready. And about a week later, I was driving my son to a baseball game. It was early on a Saturday morning, which I'm not an early person. So something big had to get my attention. And what got my attention that morning was an old time car, which I love old time cars. And on the license plate, it said, I'm ready. And I burst into tears. I think my kids were in the car. What is going on, Mom? So, what happened to me that day was I made a decision that I was going to trust and that I am ready. And I told the universe that. I got that sign and that message a week later. And I began to answer your question, I began to see the synchronicities when I would say, okay, I'm ready, or all right, tell me what the next step is.
Mhm.
And I would see matching synchronicities. And really that's what helped me was I was connected and supported by the unseen. And when we're so loud and so distracted, we don't even know that any of this is there for us. And that's the magic of life is to be connected both to our human and our humanity and our divinity. And so that's what I'm so passionate about. And that's what I think makes life so fun.
Is being open to receiving those coincidences too, and also just like honoring the synchronicities when they happen, because it's mind boggling sometimes, right? In such a good way. And also, I remember when my husband and I first started dating, we'd only been dating for a couple months. This was back in 2008. And he had invited me to go to Sayulita, Mexico with him for Christmas over the holidays. And I was like, I don't know, I barely know this person. I really like him. We really have a great connection. But I was just like, I did not know. So I was pondering it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to think about that for a few days. And I am not kidding you. I was driving home from work, and in front of me, the car had a Sayulita sticker on the back. And this was before it was popular like it is now.
You
And
know
I was
what?
like, okay, thank you. I get it. I'll do it. And it obviously worked out really well.
That's a mic drop moment. Oh my goodness. I love that so much. And that's what will happen.
Mm.
You will be guided. And I think it just takes one time for you to have your breath taken away by a coincidence. And you go, oh my gosh, okay, there's something more. There's something more here. And I'm going to trust it. And I'm going to create a state of being in my environment to support those things happening more often. And I think that's why people come to me feeling very lost and very disconnected. And this is how you find yourself again.
Mhm.
And like I said, it's like the world is putting up barriers to those experiences more and more. And in the fear that the world is feeding us and the food that the world is feeding us and on and on. And so we are really fighting to feel our humanity more and more. And every generation has always said the world's getting louder, the world's getting faster. And this is no different. But I don't know. I sense that it's just getting a little bit like way, way too out of control these days.
Which is why we just really need to make that intention to get quiet, like you say. I'm curious too if you would be willing to share just a little bit more about the book. So for the listeners who want to learn more and really dive in more deeply, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes. It's set up in the way that I organized the book. You actually are walking the same paths and the same cadence that you would walk a labyrinth. So if you don't have a labyrinth near you, you can go to labyrinthlocator.com and see if you do have one, because it would be wonderful if you did. But if you didn't, that's okay, because you can either trace the labyrinth that's printed in the book or just read it, and you'll be walking that labyrinth and getting the same energetic healing. And so it's set up by each path that we've just talked about today, which is nurturing your body would be the first path, cleaning and clearing out your environment, getting present, getting rest, really grounding yourself in all this new information so that you can dream again. And there's a whole chapter about moving your life forward and getting those dreams back again. We nurture and give to everybody else and make everybody else's dreams come true. When's it going to be our time? And sometimes I'll have clients come to me at the retreat and they won't even know what they're dreaming for anymore.
Mm.
They've lost that. And so
Yeah.
we help get that back. And again, we've talked about tuning into our intuition. That's another path. And then you finally get to the center of the labyrinth or the center of yourself. And it is this moment of feeling whole and united within yourself, connected, regaining that intimacy with yourself so that you can have that outside of you as well. So it's just this beautiful 7-path book that really helps you find out who you are again. And I'm just thrilled and really proud of it.
Yeah. I'm grateful that you're putting this beautiful work into the world too, because it is so needed. And I'm lucky because we actually have randomly, there is a labyrinth that not too far from our house that is really cool. And I'm, as you are in Arizona, I'm going to be going there next weekend that I'm really excited about because we have a little retreat planned in Sonoma or excuse me, Sedona. And there's a really cool place there that my friend is taking us to that has a beautiful labyrinth. So I am looking forward to like really tuning into that practice.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
I,
I'm so excited for you.
and also, like you say, it's just, you don't have to, you can do it just anywhere, right? I think that's the key and the beauty of this type of work is that you don't have to do anything fancy. It can be very, in fact, it is very simple. That's the magic of it. It's sneaky powerful how simple it is,
It is sneaky powerful. I
right?
love that. I'm gonna take those 2 words. It is sneaky powerful. And I went from feeling very lost and very scared as a single mom to living my dream life. And these are the steps that I took. And I really want to help anybody I possibly can to know that these 7 steps are simple. They just take your awareness. They just take waking up to your one precious life.
Thank you so much, Elaine. I'm wondering too, is there any question that I didn't ask that you wished I would have asked or any last things you want to share?
I would want to share that and reiterate that we all have a soul's calling. And that when we get quiet enough to hear what that calling is, our life will change forever. You will have health, you will have joy, you will have fulfillment. Trust how it's guiding you and where it's guiding you, and know that it's only guiding you to a place of love and you are safe.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you also just share with everybody where they can find you and your book and all of that good stuff.
Yes, they can find my book at getquiet.com. And there are limited time bonuses right now. You can actually download the first chapter as well as download a beautiful 6-minute guided message from me for inspiration. And then they can also find me at elaineglass.com.
And I'll make sure to put all that information in the show notes so everyone can find that easily. And thank you so much again. I have one last question that I always just like to ask around what finding your feminine fire means to you.
Feeling safe in my body to feel intimacy.
Mm. Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Feeling safe in your body to feel intimacy. Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. I've so enjoyed our conversation, Elaine, and I appreciate you taking the time. And thank you all for tuning in and listening. I will again share all the goodness of how you can find more about Elaine and her book, Get Quiet, in the show notes. And we will see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Find Your Feminine Fire podcast. If you loved this episode, please go ahead and forward it right now to someone you know would love it. And if you've not had a chance yet to leave us a rave review on Apple Podcasts, please make sure to rate and review if you enjoyed it, as well as make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you want to stay connected, make sure to go to amandatesta.com/thegoods to download your free sensuality activation and stay connected. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you